it's me, Roxanne, and today I want to share with you my tips on purchasing a used machine. Over the years, I've purchased numerous machines through different outlets such as eBay, through Facebook Marketplace, and even Craigslist. There are a number of criteria that you want to look for when you're interested in purchasing a used machine. Some of the decisions you need to make beforehand are what kind of machine that you're looking to purchase. Do you want an industrial machine, an electronic or computerized machine, a vintage machine, or just a mechanical machine? So these are the decisions that you have to make beforehand. And then once you know what kind of a machine you're interested in, then you can go out there and look for a great used machine. So let's get into it. As some of you know, behind me, I recently purchased this used FOF 2046. Over the years, I've been very interested in exploring this brand, and I finally decided that I would look for a nice used machine, and that's what I purchased. Now, when you start out looking for a machine, you want to find a model that you're interested in, and then the first thing I always do is I go and I look for the manual online. And then I read about the machine, and then I see if there are any videos on YouTube showing the operation of the machine. It's important to know how the machine sounds and it looks and it acts when you're interested in buying a computerized or an electronic machine such as the 2046. Mechanical machines can be a little bit more easy to purchase, like the vintage Singer featherweight that I have up here. There are different criteria that I look for when I'm purchasing that type of machine as well. But right now I want to stick to what I looked for when I was purchasing this machine. I looked for the manual online because I knew when I went to view the machine, I was going to want to test drive it. So I knew that I was going to want to bring a new needle, I was going to want to bring thread, fabric, and everything because I wanted to test drive the machine exactly how I would use it in my own possession. And that's what I did. So when you find a machine, first look for the manual so you know when you get to test drive the machine, you know how to thread it. Don't always count on the owner helping you with threading, because many times an owner will have inherited the machine from, say, a mother or a grandmother, and they don't know anything about the machine. So you really need to do all your homework ahead of time. Another thing I like to do is look to see online and see if there's a group that supports FOF machines, which is what I did with this machine. I joined a Facebook group specifically for this brand, and I went and I did a search for this model. And I read everything that I could about it, if there were any problems with them, if owners are still happy with them. I also go to patternreview.com, where you can read numerous reviews on every kind of machine and pattern and all kinds of reviews. And I found that this was a very well liked machine. So I knew that I was going to want to test drive this machine. So when you're going to reach out to the owner, it's important that you have access to the machine. They should be very happy to have you come and test it and ask questions. You should always test drive it as well as ask where the machine came from. In this case, this was the owner's mother's machine, and the mother had upgraded to a new machine, and she passed this to her daughter. And the woman liked the machine, but she liked her other machine better. So she decided that instead of keeping both machines, she would rehome this machine. So I knew who the original owner was, and I knew that the woman took care of it because she told me that she maintained it. It was a very clean machine. So these are things that you should look for. If they're clean, if there's a maintenance history on them. Another thing that's very important is making sure that the hand wheel turns freely, that there aren't any hard spots, because that could indicate a broken mechanism. Now in this machine, it has a separate bobbin casing, and I wanted to make sure that it had an original bobbin casing, which it does. When purchasing vintage machines such as a 221 or a 301, those casings, you'll want to have an original bobbin casing because many times the reproduction casings don't work as well. And an original bobbin casing can be very expensive. So you want to make sure on some of these older vintage machines that the bobbin casing is original with the machine. Another thing that I'd like you to keep an eye out for is if the outer casing of the machine, which should be bright white, is yellowing. There could be several indications of why that happened. It could have been stored away in a storage unit for a period of time. It could have been underneath a plastic cover where moisture could have been introduced underneath the plastic. It could have been in a household with smokers and have a layer of nicotine on the outside. It could have also been in direct sunlight. All of these factors are very important when deciding whether you would like to purchase a used machine. It could have caused damage over time, and sometimes you just can't see it. It would be on the internal components, such as nylon gears breaking down. So I just want you to be aware of that. Another thing I always look for is the needle plate. I always inspect the needle plate. It's called the throat plate or the needle plate, and it's this metal piece right here that covers your feed dogs. It's important to inspect that because if there are many damages such as burrs or notches, that could indicate that the machine was either abused or many needles were broken. And that's something that could indicate trouble or even throw your timing off. So that's another thing I want you to be aware of, is just to look at your needle plate and inspect it well. If you're going to be purchasing from an online source where you're not actually able to test drive the machine, ask for more photos than they include. Make sure that all the accessories are included in the photos. Make sure that if it's possible to ask them for a video of the machine in action so you can see that it does in fact work. Make sure that they know how to package the machine properly, and if they have original packing material from that machine, and if they're the original owner. All of those things are important so that your machine arrives packaged properly and in good condition. Also make sure that they insure the product, because you just never know if it could be damaged, water damaged, or dropped, especially if it's an electronic machine, because then you need to have recourse because they could be very expensive. Another thing when purchasing a machine that I want you to look out for is that they have the original foot control. And then look at the plug to make sure that the plug doesn't have any burns or damage on it. You never know whether the machine has had a surge or any kind of lightning strike or damage, and that would be visible or evident on the plug having burn marks. I just want you to make as safe of a purchase as possible so that you can be happy with the machine that you receive. Now I want to share my experience about this 221. Years ago, I had seen a featherweight on Craigslist and I was very interested. So I showed it to my husband and he was very excited, and he went and he purchased the machine for me as a surprise. Well, when he brought the machine home, I realized that it was not the machine that was pictured on Craigslist. Although it's a beautiful machine and it doesn't have any damage, it still wasn't the machine that was in the photograph. So I want you to be very careful when you're purchasing anything from an online source, through Marketplace, through an eBay auction, through Etsy, that you ask them, are these photos of the actual machine? The woman that we purchased the machine from wasn't trying to get over on us. She just didn't feel like taking a picture of the actual machine, and she found one online that looked similar enough. She really didn't know what she had, so even though she had a much older picture of a much older singer in the photograph, it looked similar enough for her. And she was very honest that it wasn't the same photograph. So I was very happy with the purchase anyway, but you can see how that could have gone very badly for me. Another machine that I purchased was this small Marita Special, which is a little 2 needle cover stitch. And that machine was purchased on eBay. When I received the machine, it was packaged pretty nicely, so I knew it wasn't damaged, but I couldn't get it to work for anything. And unfortunately, that one I was not able to find a manual for. So another lesson learned, and that's why I'm sharing with you, that it's very important to have the manual before you purchase a machine. So I took that machine to a mechanical tech to have him look over it, and he came back and told me that it was a piece of junk, that I could use it as a doorstop. So I was very dissatisfied with that, and I reached out to the company and I was able to get a manual, and I realized that the needle was in backwards. So once I turned the needle around and I threaded it, it worked beautifully. So it's a very nice little machine. And I want you to learn from my mistake that not always does a technician have the answers for you. It's very important to have the manual. Now, another reason why I can't stress enough how important it is to have a manual is because typically there will be an accessory page included. Now, when you're purchasing a used machine, many times a lot of the accessories get lost or broken over years, especially with older machines such as this one. But you still want to make sure that the accessories, as many of the accessories are there as possible. And you also want to do a search and make sure if anything is missing that you can replace it if it's something that needs to be replaced. Which brings me to another point that I always look up is to see if parts are available. So when you're purchasing a used machine, you don't always know how long they're going to last. You can do all of your due diligence and ask all the right questions, and in the end, there may be some sort of a component that just breaks down or from wear, or it's just old. It happens. So do a little research on parts and see if there's any parts that are still available for the model that you're interested in looking for, because that could be important along the way. Another thing that you may want to look into is the brand that you're purchasing. Make sure that there's a dealer around you that carries that line as well. Sometimes it's nice to go in and just familiarize yourself, and because their technicians will be familiar with that brand, whether it's a new or an older machine. So I hope that some of these tips will be very helpful to you if you are interested in purchasing a used machine. Over the years, I've purchased many used machines, and for the most part, I've always been happy. So I hope that you'll find your little used treasure out there just as I have. So have a happy creative day. Bye now.